So here we have another episode of Words with Friends. And today I'm with a good friend of mine, David Burkus. I'll let you know the word in a second because I like to roll people under the bus a little and let them know the word that we're going to be talking about today. So let's see, if David is excited as I am about talking about networking. David, welcome.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. So wait, is that the word then? Because you might have tipped your hand and released the word.
Well, absolutely. That's the point, right? So yeah. Here we are. David is a friend of mine that I know again from the speaking circuit, hugely successful in the world of writing some really kick-ass books, some great content out there on TED Talks. Tedx Talk got kind of blown up to be like number 11 or something, right?
I wish. We have 1.8 million views. Unfortunately, there's probably like 25 or 30 that have over close to that. So
yeah, well, the beautiful thing about lists though is that we could find a list that you're number 11 on.
No, all right. That's probably true. That is probably
And the reason I like number 11 is it's kind of where I normally land, like just outside top 10. It's
yeah.
Like, really? But never mind. David, welcome to the show. We're here to talk about a word. We're talking about the word networking. Why do you think I've picked that word for you?
I have no idea. I've tried to avoid using that word as often as possible. No. So we've just written a new book, Friend of a Friend, it's actually not about networking. It's about changing the definition of networking, which makes a show like Words with Friends the perfect place to discuss what the definition should be. So, okay. Yeah.
So hit me. Definition in your mind. What is the definition should be of networking?
Well, can we start with what the definition is for most people is, right? Everybody who's listening that already heard this and chose to actually listen for 2 more minutes instead of just click to Phil's other videos or listen to a different podcast. For a lot of people, networking means meeting strangers, adding new people to your network, your LinkedIn contacts, in the old days, your Rolodex, right? And in reality, I think what networking should be about is about having a better understanding of the network that you are already in. So what I say often is that you can't grow your network, you can't improve your network, you don't have a network, you exist inside of a network. And the best thing you can do is figure out where you are in that, where you want to be, and how to navigate it to get there. So I think that act of navigation through the network is what we should call networking, not the weird little cocktail parties, meeting total strangers and giving elevator pitches thing.
So I turn off all notifications and then something randomly starts ringing at my end.
Interesting.
And I have no idea what it is. Just some random noise. But this is the beautiful thing about a show like this is it's as real and raw as it could possibly come.
Oh, so yeah, no, that was actually
interruptions.
We're going to let the audience wonder if I just secretly called you just to mess with you. Because we were live. Yeah. Which I did not. But
I don't think you're that smart.
I don't think I'm that smart either.
So we talked networking there, and you just gave a great definition about kind of we all exist inside a network. And I think when we look at the social networks as a whole right now, they perhaps illustrate that point more than anything. Like when people say, are you on LinkedIn? Are you on Facebook? Like that in itself is a closed network that is now grown to a point of being so big that its nature of being closed is almost non-existent. So your role within that network perhaps becomes a little bit clearer. Is that me getting the interpretation of this correct?
Yeah, no, I think that's really true. I mean, I'll give you a really weird stat that we uncovered in the research, which is that the whole sort of 6 degrees of separation thing that you've heard about is actually true. For the 7.4 billion people on the planet, you are 5 or 6 introductions away from anyone else. But if you have a Facebook account, so if you're one of the 2 billion that have a Facebook account, you're 3 to 4 introductions away. The network it is closed, but it's massive, 2 billion people. And yet it's closer than anything else. Unfortunately, though, I think for a lot of us, maybe because it's easy to track, maybe it makes us feel good, like we're winning in a game, etc. We then think about the network as how many friends do I have, or how many connections if it's LinkedIn, or how many followers do I have on Twitter, which doesn't matter nearly as much as getting a sense for who that you are not already connected to is connected to people you know, and where this network is sort of headed and where you need to head. That's far more important than just trying to run up the count on the number of people that are connected with. I know lots of random people in countries I'm never going to visit that send LinkedIn requests to everyone and then brag about how they have 15,000 connections. Those people are not doing this properly, right? It's the people that know where they are on the network and where they want to go that are doing it properly.
So why do you think people chase the number?
I mean, number one reason I think is ego, and then a little bit of fear. Ego meaning it's easy to track, it's easy to feel good at, it's easy to compare. I mean, I could, if I wanted to brag, I could pull up your Twitter followers and compare them to mine. Although I probably wouldn't end up bragging. You would probably then brag to me for the rest of the show. So it's probably not a good idea. But it's easy to do and easy to see progress on. But the other reason is fear. One of the things I think is most interesting in the research is that online social networks, with very few exceptions, tend not to be an effective replacement for face-to-face, in-person connections. They can be a really powerful supplement to them, but they're not a replacement for. And I think a lot of people still have that initial sort of fear of being out face-to-face. And this isn't an introversion, extroversion thing. It's am I gonna say the right thing? Am I interesting enough? All of those sort of questions. It's easier to just kind of sit at home and click instead of actually make those face-to-face connections. But we see, and we've thankfully had these tools for long enough now that we can see over the long term, they are not a replacement for actual in-person getting to know real people, which is why, despite the fact that you and I were friends for like a super long time, we weren't really friends till a couple weeks ago when we finally met in New York.
Right. And I think that human touch just makes a big difference, because all of a sudden you've got, what I call in my business, like some belly time or some eyeball time, where you've been in the same space and you've been close enough to each other to be able to touch each other in some way.
Belly time?
Yeah. Like you're close enough to almost being
belly time is like, that's like tummy time with when you've got like an infant and you're trying to get them to learn how to crawl. There you go. That's the level of intimacy that we're looking for as we start to build a network out, maybe. I would have used the term like FaceTime, although I'm pretty sure Apple owns it now. So
well, that's why we can't use it. Maybe we should start a new thing.
We should trademark belly time.
I like it.
I think my belly's big enough too that we can make this work. You don't have a belly, so.
Hey, that's very, very kind of you.
It's that bar 3 that you and the wife are doing. I know.
Yeah. She keeps me on my toes, buddy. Keeps me on my toes. What are all these mistakes that people are making then? Like, everybody's chasing quantity. People are sat out there thinking, okay, well, what I need to be able to do is I need to network more. I've got to grow my network. And these are the messages that get sent down the line. Like, how does this then translate into some real life practical mistakes, and what can people do to avoid it?
Yeah. So, I mean, the number one mistake, again, is to go back to that grow your network thing. What does that lead you to do? That leads you to either try and run up the count virtually or try and hit up all of these mixers, which can be good. But in reality, we know from a lot of research in this area, people don't actually mix at mixers. Like, the researchers have thrown events, cocktail parties specifically for networking, and then attached RFID tags to everyone's clothes and tracked who is talking to who. And even though people go to that wanting to make new connections, they end up actually just talking to people they already know, catching up or what have you. Now, what I think is interesting about that is that can be powerful, but if your intent and your mindset is, I need to know more, get to know new strangers, right? Need to make strangers into friends, etc. You've kind of got the wrong mentality, because A, those events aren't going to help you, but B, those new strangers, the likelihood that they're actually going to be immediately useful to you, or you're going to be immediately useful to them, is really, really small. A much better approach in the research literature, we refer to it as going after your weak ties or your dormant ties. These are people that you know, but you don't know that well. You talk to them, but maybe you haven't talked to them in a while, etc. And just like strangers, they are out there somewhere else in the network interacting with people that you don't see often. So there's a potential referral there or connection there. They have access to information that you don't have. They think differently than you do, right? Versus your close contacts, so everybody kind of thinks alike. And unlike strangers, they're people you already know. But we just feel weird a lot of times because, oh, I've let that relationship lax. Like, do you ever get to that point where you feel like after about 6 months, well, now I can't reach out to that person because it just get awkward? On the other hand, when someone sends you an email that says, like, if I sent you an email tomorrow, I mean, it'd be actually kind of weird because we just did this. But if I sent you an email yesterday that said, hey, Phil, I know we haven't talked in a while. I was thinking about you, and I just thought I would check in and see how you're doing. Very few people in the world would think that's weird, sleazy, creepy, awkward, whatever. In fact, they'd be flattered that some other human somewhere else on the earth is thinking about them. So reaching back out to those weak ties and dormant ties is far more powerful, not only for getting the information, the referrals, the leads, et cetera, that you need, but also because these people are already your friends. You just haven't talked to them in a while.
And I love that, though, thought of saying, where is that periphery of a network that you've grown over a period of time where there are people that you have a reason to contact, but they're close enough to not be complete strangers and you can start a conversation with them? And I get a lot of this hit in my inbox, that exact email that you just kind of crafted, whether it comes in the form of a LinkedIn message or an email, come and hits in me, and I hit reply and I respond, you know, things are great, got married last year, now living in New York City, crushing it with the business, yada, yada, yada. You know, what's happening with you? And then it's crickets. And what it makes me think is it makes me think that somebody cast that email out to me, but they probably cast it out to another 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 other contacts. And it wasn't done with sincerity. What does David Burkus think about that?
You know, what's funny is I wasn't expecting you to say crickets. I was expecting you to say that the follow-up email was some copy-paste pitch to invest in my new company or something like that, right?
Well, and that happens too, but yeah.
But in either case, the root problem is the same. Again, we have that attempt to use technology, not a social network in this case, but just the ease of Control V, Control P, or maybe I have that backwards, but you know what I mean. The ease of copy and paste to scale your reconnecting with people. And again, that doesn't work. It's that belly time concept or that one-on-one time concept. So actually replying on that is pretty good. Even better if you can use, like what I actually coach a lot of people to do is before you send that email, almost kind of you use the digital tools for something that's authentic, almost kind of Facebook stalk them or LinkedIn stalk them, see what's going on in your life. Like if I hadn't talked to you in a year, but we were still connected, I could look up on Facebook and see, oh yeah, he is crushing into the business. He is in New York now. Well, technically he's in Hoboken, but you know, whatever. I could see those things and then I could actually tailor a more authentic message, but it would take time. What's funny is we're talking about 90 seconds, you know, 2 minutes, maybe tops. And yet we're looking at all of these tools to make 2 minutes into 17 seconds to scale, when in reality, like 1 a day is a far better way to scale than 40 all at once and then nothing for 6 months.
Now, I do a lot of business into the world of network marketing, multi-level marketing, whatever you choose to call it. And the primary concept of that kind of industry is, you know, you find something that you love, that you adore, then introduce that idea into 3 people who are close to you, who introduce it into 3 people who are close to them, who introduce it to 3 people that are close to them. And before you know it, you've got a giant network that is ambassadors of your product or service or offering. And every time I see a presentation delivered for a room full of people with that kind of concept, one of 2 things happens. People either go, that sounds easy, I can do that, or that sounds like a scam, there's no way that that could possibly be true. They jump into one of those 2 camps real quickly. But let's talk about the camp of people that jump into the that sounds easy. Because it's real, like that's often the majority. Yeah, of course, that makes sense. Just speak to 3 people I love about a thing that I love and get them to see if they love it as much as I love it. Like, great. The breakdown then often becomes as to say, yeah, but how do I get into that conversation? You know, we walk away from it. And I see it at networking events. People say, just go to a BNI group, get to meet some like-minded people. And what will happen is you'll be able to collaborate with other local business owners. You'll be able to get some more success. Go and hang out with the people that have already achieved the success that you're looking for ahead of time. Everybody goes, that makes sense. I can do that. And then what happens is when we find ourselves in these environments where conversations need to happen, people find themselves lost for words. They hide like looking at their smartphones as opposed to engaging with people, or they put it off to tomorrow. So what's the science behind all of that sort of stuff?
So here again is where I think this idea of thinking about the whole network versus running up the count can be really powerful, right? So for the group of people that you sign up and you go, okay, this is awesome, right? What do we tend to do? I mean, in a weird way, network marketing works really similar to the way that sort of insurance sales works. If you're doing it wrong, you're thinking about running up the count and then marketing directly to that count. And then what happens when that count is over, right? You make a list of 100 people, you tell them about this exciting new business that you just started in. 2 or 3 of them sign up. The other 97, you can't approach again anymore. And that's again, because we're looking at the count versus the network. So what I think is you reach back out to those weak ties, but you almost, not to use sort of magic words or exactly what to say, you almost don't sell to that group. Instead, you ask a question like, hey, who do you know in blank, with blank being what the target market to sign up for that opportunity would be, right? So if let's say you're joining a company that's into health and fitness and wellness, right? So you would say, you wouldn't just contact all of these weak ties and then go, I just signed up for this amazing company, this amazing opportunity. You would go, hey, who do you know that cares about health and nutrition? Or who do you know that works in fitness? Who do you know that's watching these things? You're asking not for that person to sign up, but just asking this broad question. Who do you know that would potentially be interested in that? And then what I love about the who do you know in blank is it's not targeting a specific person and begging for a specific introduction, because every introduction is actually a referral, a recommendation, right? I'm putting my name on you if you refer me to you, et cetera. But when you say, who do you know in blank, you give an openness to that question and you encourage people to answer only with people that they would feel comfortable introducing you to, right? If Phil asks Dave, who do you know in investing? And I know Warren Buffett, but I don't trust Phil. I'll tell you that I know this guy who works at Edward Jones because I'm comfortable introducing you to that guy, right? So this who do you know in blank question is a way better question to start with after you've rewarmed that contact than to run into kind of your traditional pitch. And again, it's that difference between just creating a list and thinking a network is a list of people you know versus thinking a network is something you're in and there are potential first and second and third degree connections that are way more valuable than your close contacts, your close friends. It's not called friendship marketing. It's called network marketing for a reason.
Okay. So I like this in what you're saying here is let's identify who some of the people are who are in your network that are within arm's reach, but not necessarily right up in your face. What we can do is we can reach out to them and say, what's new with you? And we can start to be able to fire up a conversation. And then we can ask the who do you know in blank question. I feel like there's a whole gap that needs to happen between those two things, that if we don't explore that opportunity, we're going to send an army of people sending emails out to people saying, what's up with you, what's new? And they come back and say, hey, yeah, all's good here, just started a new job. And they respond by saying, who do you know?
Right. I mean, I think this isn't something that you scale and you do 100 all at once. I think what I try and do is literally 1 to 2 week tie reconnections a week. If you're trying to launch something, you might want to scale by moving that to 2 or 3 a day. Right? Any more than maybe, let's say 5 per day, and you're not going to be able to keep up with that conversation. The trick, if it is a trick, is to have an authentic connection. And when that conversation is going back and forth, and now you're able to talk about that new thing that you're launching, that's when you go into again, who do you know in blank? What I think is interesting is a lot of people are so conditioned to wait for that. Like the week tie, we're so conditioned to expect that sales pitch, that copy paste thing right off the bat, that as soon as you actually make an authentic human reply, hey, that's so awesome that you moved to New York. Have you found all 57 Ray's original pizzas yet? Right? Like when you can have some real conversation about certain stuff, and then they finally ask, I forgot to ask what's going on with you. Then the invitation is there. And again, then you're not launching into the sales pitch. You're launching into an ask for help by helping you explore who's at the fringes of your network.
Gotcha. So what we're looking to be able to do is to create context after that initial discussion first, is almost to create a problem worth fixing through conversation. Is that we find ourselves that we open up a warm connection, we start to get them back into conversation. We have to care about them, right? We can't just say, hey, look, this is somebody that I'm now working. This is somebody I've been meaning to catch up with. What we're then going to do is frame something up that is like a problem that exists in our world or what's new with us, but to create some circumstance, some situation, some context to what's going on in our world, and then present them potentially with a puzzle or a problem that we're looking to be able to solve, and then ask the question, who do you know in blank? Right.
No, precisely. And I think that workflow, again, it's a far higher ROI. It's hard to scale it and do 100 a day, but 5 a day, 4 to 5 a day for a month leads you to this whole idea of who is 1 or 2 introductions away. The other thing is, again, you're being friendly, you're reestablishing trust in that relationship, puts you at, and you're not launching into an immediate sales pitch with that person, puts you in a point where that person's an advocate for you even moving forward. Even if they say, you know what, I don't know anybody, they remember that Phil's doing this new thing. Right. And now as I go through conversations for the next couple of weeks, it's not that sticky, but it is far stickier than that moment. They now can encounter that. And when they're in a conversation where somebody is sort of relevant, you come back to mind, not because they just tried to end the conversation quickly because you were doing that copy paste thing, but because you reestablished trust, you rebuilt. The fancy term in sales is rapport. But I like to think of it again as you just won back an old friend.
Yeah, you just got back into a position of being front of mind, right? You were somewhere towards the back, and now that you've just come into the foresight. There's a formula that I've seen to be true. I talk about it in Exactly How to Sell, and it's a formula called 10-5-2 because that's the basis of the ratio that appears. But I'm seeing some direct comparisons to it in what you're talking about here, in the way 10-5-2 works is that if you have a conversation with 10 people who fit your target market or are in some way that kind of warm contact tie, and you share with them about some of the context or circumstance of what it is that you're looking for, 5 of those people will have some form of genuine need or awareness towards it. And 2 of those people will probably look on to be able to go and help. What I see more people looking to do is to try and find the 5 to convert to the 2, but don't have the conversation with the 10 first, and then scale up the pitches to the 5. You've got to go through the conversations with the 10 to get to the 5 to be able to find the 2 is what I found through time. And then the magic in that is the 5 who aren't the right 5 within the 10 go on to help you be able to find some people in your next 10-5-2.
Right. And this is actually where we get scale. We don't get scale from the outreach. We get scale because, so I would call it like the 10, 5, 2 to 3, 2, right? The 2 to 3 being for the 5 people that go, oh yeah, no, I'd love to help. I know this person. I know in my experience, they actually give you 2 to 3 names, not just one name. So you've gone from 10 down to 5, but then you're back at 10 to 15.
Correct.
And they're better qualified. So your 2 is probably not even 2, it's probably 4 or 5. And that's how you scale. The unfortunate thing, what you're talking about is more like pitch all 10 like they're the 5 and then get 1. But then because you're doing 100 a day, you're getting 1 a day and you're thinking this is working. And it is until it's not. And then you've got a huge problem.
And that's, again, I agree where you get it wrong, is that everything is a start line and a finish line. Whereas what you and I are talking about is saying, how do we create a perpetual organic self-feeding cycle? This is actually, I never run out of people to talk to, because every time I get something that's not quite right, it leads me towards something else, that leads me towards something else, that leads me towards something else, which creates movement.
Right, exactly right. And the who do you know in blank does that. It keeps sort of filling that on the front end, right? And we know, like, to go specific to network marketing, like, we know this is important. Unfortunately, where a lot of people put this who do you know in blank is after the sale. So you go 10, 5, 2, and then just those 2, you ask for who else, right? Meanwhile, like, those 2 just said yes, so they're immediately in, to use like Joey Coleman's term, they're now in the buyer's remorse phase because they bought. So they're less likely to want to refer you.
The least likely point in time for anybody ever to refer anybody is at the point where they've been brave enough to say yes, but haven't got any personal experience in the product or service. Precisely. And so the number, you're going to run out of those numbers really quickly because they all shrink down instead of trying to grow that as much as possible with your initial 10 and then shrink down. And you'll never run out of that as long as the approach is, and this is what's weird, is the approach isn't who do I already know that could buy from me, right? Or that I could recruit. The approach is who do I know that could help me? And the sheer answer to that question is a much bigger number than the answer people that are in your space that want to buy from you. We've seen some great examples of this in the world when it comes to people being put under pressure, say for like a fundraising exercise. And all of a sudden it's like being put on you to say, okay, there's this great cause that I care massively about. We've got to try and raise $50,000 towards achieving X. We immediately jump towards thinking, who do I know that can help? And the conversation starts to flow far more freely. Why is it that we can have more free-flowing conversations when what we're looking to be able to do is to help a cause that's bigger than ourselves, than when we feel like that we're the benefactor of that help?
Yeah, well, I think 2 things. I think number 1, it's because we think that the cause is bigger than ourselves, and then the value that we're providing to a potential client is not a cause bigger than ourselves. That's a confidence problem. I'm not entirely sure how to solve that other than to suggest that maybe you need to spend a little bit more time internalizing the fact that you're actually you're helping people by promoting this cause, right? And I think again, the second is that we naturally, because that's seen as, and so many of us have flirted in sales a little bit and played around with it and then feel weird about it, that, or it was like the only people that replied when we graduated university and actually wanted to recruit us and we went to the initial interviews. We just, like, a lot of us have this weird bad taste in our mouth about it. So when it's a transaction, we feel weird. And when it's just seen as helping. And that's, again, why I love to sort of reframe this whole thing is you are not asking anyone to buy from you. You are asking the people that you know to help you in the service of helping. Who do you know in health and fitness, for example? Because I have something that will help their health and fitness business, right?
Right.
That's in the service of kind of this bigger cause. I mean, again, I don't know what to tell you on the deep down psychological level. One of the things I love and think about often is Daniel Pink's prior book, To Sell Is Human, which was all about this idea that 2 out of 10 people say they're in sales, but the truth is 10 out of 10 people are actually in sales. We just have found a way to convince ourselves that we're not. because we're in the service of something greater than ourselves. So go find that and internalize it. And then I think it takes care of itself.
Where are some examples that you can refer to where this concept of yours, of friend of a friend, and the way we're talking about reframing networking today has worked? Give me some evidence to prove that this isn't just a good idea.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of my favorite examples, unfortunately, is from the world more of sort of job hopping than selling. But it's a fascinating story that I got to write about in the book of Michelle McKenna Doyle, who is somebody, a brilliant thinker, again, because it's less about who I know and more about asking the network, who do you know? The top line on Michelle's story, she was trained as an accountant. She grew up in a family that loved football, of all things, right? She obviously didn't play, but all of her other brothers did. Her dad assumed that, like, one day I'm going to see a kid make it into the NFL. And Michelle obviously didn't play. She studied accounting. She gradually transitioned actually into IT, taking care of sort of big data, et cetera, and became a chief information officer. But still loved football, still ran a fantasy football league, et cetera. And one day she's on the NFL website and she sees this job posting for this thing, VP of Information Technology. And she's reading the description and she's like, well, they need a CIO. I don't know anyone at the NFL, but they're writing this job posting wrong. What they need is a CIO. And that's kind of the end of it for her until other people start to email her and go, hey, I read this and it sounds like you. And then, of course, the first couple of times she's replying like, well, yeah, but they, what they don't need is a VP of IT. They need somebody higher level. And after the third or fourth, she's like, all right, maybe there is something here. But again, it's not who do I know that's in the NFL. It's I need to explore the fringes of my network. So she starts reaching back out to a lot of weak ties, one of whom used to work with her at a prior company. It was actually a Disney company, which I think is just kind of cool. But now is working for a headhunting firm, and his firm's not handling it, but he knows the firm that is, right? And so he makes that introduction. So we're at a weak tie. We're at 1/2 degrees of separation to the people that are actually handling the job posting inside the NFL. And now, because we're in that warm referral market, the who do you know in blank? Oh, well, I know the search firm that's handling this. Let me introduce you. And then the search firm recommends you to them. She's now in the boardroom with all of the main senior leaders in the NFL, and she's managed to convince them, you don't need a VP of IT. You need a CIO. You need me, right? And they make her the offer. And on the day that she is given the offer, she is the highest ranking and highest paid female executive at the NFL. And what I most love about the story is she remains her father's only child that made it into the NFL.
I love it.
The lesson isn't the sort of that, oh, she was great at this and convinced and was persuasive. The lesson is she didn't just think, oh, I know no one who works in this. She thought there is a path somewhere to where I need to get to. And rather than just LinkedIn stalk and see who works at the NFL and then how many connections away I am and beg for introductions, she took an open posture and started asking, hey, who do you know in blank? Who do you know that works in search? Who do you know that works in the NFL? Who do you know that works in sports? Right? Just trying to figure out where her network could lead her to actually get that connection.
I love this kind of explore the fringes of my network phrase. I think there's so much power in that. And I'm sat here right now just thinking about that very point and looking at the quality of people that exist within the fringes of my network that I haven't taken a moment to be able to explore. I'm always exploring the fringes of my network. But when I think about explore the fringes of my network, I'm scratching the surface of it. The potential is limitless.
No, I think it absolutely is. And especially, again, it's the beauty of a phrase like, who do you know in blank, is it's multiple, it's open-ended, so you can generate a lot of stuff. And you ask it from a lot of different people. Those weak ties and dormant ties, the people that are somewhere else in the larger network we're all a part of, their close contacts, their friends are people you can't even see because they're further away from you. Your close friends, I mean, we all know, for example, we're in a couple different groups together online. We interact whenever we're in the same city, et cetera. But we all know each other and we all know that we know each other. So it's not a good place to ask for introductions and what have you, but to ask that group, hey, who do you know in finance? Because I'm going after this realm, right? Those people they're not your wife, your close friends, your business partners. They're not the people that all know who you are. They are people who are somewhere else in the network. So their close friends are different from you. And that makes the list, like you said, potentially endless, so long as you keep asking the question.
And taking that example that you and I both speak for a living outside of some of the other things that we do. And if you'd ask the question within that closed community, who do you know that might be looking for a speaker who talks on X, Y, or Z, that network's going to shut down and think, well, I'm not going to introduce you to anybody that potentially could have booked me. Now, I'm not saying that's going to be all of the people all the time, but it certainly is a consideration of some. Whereas if you were to say in your mind that you knew that you had a great offering towards financial services, and that you would drop a different question into that group that says, hey, who do you know in senior positions within the financial services industry? I'm pretty sure the exact same network would deliver a demonstrably different result.
Right. And again, it's because to go back to our point earlier in our example with sales and network marketing, it's because you're not looking for this transaction immediately. There's not even a transaction on the table. You're just exploring. Everybody wants to help somebody who's just sort of exploring, trying to figure it out. So like my favorite thing to ask if I'm talking about our group in particular, but also just in general, is not just the who do you know in blank, but the who do you know in blank, I'm working on a project and I'd like to learn more about this industry or this sector or this city or whatever it is. So again, it's again, not a salesy thing of who do you know in blank because I need clients. It's I'm trying to learn a bit more about this. I'm trying to learn, like Phil, for you would be like, I'm trying to learn how exactly what to say can actually translate into financial services. Who do we know in that? Or I think you and I even had a conversation about the pharmaceutical industry because I started out selling in pharma and I'm familiar with terms like carrying the bag, right? And those kind of industry terms that if you're saying, hey, who do you know that books speakers in the pharmaceutical industry? A, I don't want to help you, but B, I can't as much as I can say, well, let's talk about all of this. And then in the course of that conversation, names start popping up, that information and those referrals are limitless so long as you keep asking that question. The moment you sort of shift to, all right, let's close this deal right away, you're not in exploratory mode. Now you start that funnel, to use that term, instead of getting it as full as possible first.
Right. And there's truth in that as well, right? I think everybody over a certain age knows that if you're reaching out, looking to be able to explore possibilities, that we're almost going on little micro dates, right? We're trying to be able to feel each other out to see if there's some form of mutual benefit here. Other people don't expect that communication or conversation to be something that is all heart and no purpose to. So I think the minute that somebody accepts that exchange of communication, they're okay with the fact that there might be commercial success somewhere later down the tracks in it. They just don't want to feel like you've asked for something inappropriate on the first date.
Well, and to take it a little bit further, they are not only are they okay with it because they're aware of it, they're actually much more willing to kind of be open to it because the manner in which you are doing it suggests that what you're looking for is the key word that you said earlier was mutually beneficial. You're looking for a win-win. You're looking for some exchange of value, not just to sort of like sell somebody on something that they didn't want but bought because a friend of yours referred them to you, right? When you take this open posture and this more exploratory nature, yeah, they know that there's potentially a transaction down the road, but they also know that they can trust that that transaction will be a win-win because you won't pitch it unless it is. Why do I know that? Because you haven't pitched it yet.
Right. Just to kind of segue in different directions is one of the things I'm loving about what I'm hearing here is that you don't need a networking event or a platform for social networking to network in the way that we're talking about here. Networking can just be something you can start to decide to do like now. You could hang up on this interview right now and you could reach
out. Don't, we're not done yet.
Oh, please do, but come back in and let us know how you go on. But
there you go, bookmark it and come back. Yeah.
Yeah, but to explore the fringes of your network is something that you can start doing instantly. It's something that you can do within those pockets or windows of time that occur in your day that currently go to the wind whilst you're traveling or between meetings or waiting for something to start, etc. That you can almost cast your net, providing you don't do it with so much abundance and lack of care, that it doesn't need permission. So if somebody isn't in the world of, say, they own a business and they're looking for more new clients, or they're on the job hunt for something new. Somebody is just somebody who's happy and content in their life that has been petrified about the idea of networking events and sees networking as a thing that weird people do. What can they do to use some of these principles and concepts just to be able to further their life in some way? Not necessarily their financial position, but to kind of re-engage.
Yeah. So again, this is why I love that shift in the definition, right? That the definition of networking is not head to the event. The definition is understand the network you're already in. Between weak ties and dormant ties, between exploring the fringes, right? This is what I actually love about the 6 degrees of separation studies. And it's not the 6 degrees of separation and everybody could get an interview with the president. At any given time, only about half of the country wants to talk to the president, right? Or less. So it's not about that and who you're connected to. It's about, if you think that 7.4 billion people are connected by 5 introductions, how many hundreds of millions are 1 or 2 away? You don't need to go to that sort of speed dating for professionals mixer type thing and then hope and pray that there's a perfect person there. If you authentically reach back out to Weak Ties, if you're asking the who you know in blank question, right, which can be done from your home, right? So you don't go to the event, you just sort of do it from your home. If you're joining, the other thing I encourage people to do is jump into what are known as shared activities. These are events that draw people from a diverse set together. The purpose of the event is not unstructured, just face-to-face time. It's to do something else. Volunteer for a charity, right? To run a 5K together and have a running club that trains for 12 weeks ahead of time. For me, it's actually Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which is super esoteric, but it draws a bunch of diverse people. And there's a reason for being there beyond sort of networking. There's a lot of research that suggests that you end up talking to people you wouldn't talk to in that same event if there were a drink in everyone's hand and you were in a hotel ballroom. You end up having a deeper connection because you explore more than just professional relationships, and you end up having a longer lasting connection. So reaching back out to Weak Ties, exploring the fringes of our network, we've already talked about those. And then the third I would tell people is just pick 1 or 2 shared activities that you're engaging in every month and go after those and let your network grow organically in that capacity. You'd be amazed at the diversity of people that you actually get connected to, who then are a great sort of target for a who you know in blank question to just keep exploring.
Yeah, I love that too, because you find that safe space, right? That mutual agreeable topic to say, well, whatever happens if we run out of things to talk about, we can talk about this thing, and we both happen to already have a shared committed interest in that thing. So that creates almost some structure and safety to conversation.
Well, the other thing that happens is it encourages people to leave their scripts at the door, right? Their script. And there's some great, like our mutual friend Clay Hebert has this perfect thing about the script of how do you answer the what do you do question. But in shared activities, people don't really ask the what do you do question first. They get to know each other in a bunch of different angles first, which is better because the likelihood that if I ask you what you do and you ask me and we find something that's a perfect match, the likelihood that that's going to happen is really small. But if we're exploring lots of different areas because we both checked our scripts at the door, then there's a much higher percentage we're going to find a thing to connect about. It might be that we both love some novel series or some random show on Netflix or whatever it is, but we'll find something much more likely than if we're just trading our scripts and seeing if there's a match.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's fun as well, right? It removes all the pressure.
Yeah, I mean, it's also part of being a decent human being, which is why I really like it. Right?
There is that.
The reason the book is called Friend of a Friend, for example, is that we already know how to do all of this stuff with our friends, our personal connections. We know not to keep it transactional. We know to explore sort of the totality. We know to do that thing that, oh, you know, Derek, how do I about? We do all of that naturally with friends. And then we shift over to professional, and it's all about sort of systems and scripts and weird, it just gets uncomfortable and inhuman, right? And then we worry that we feel authentic and sleazy and all this other stuff. When in reality, if we just take it back to treating professional contacts the way we would treat friends, there's a whole lot of value that gets unlocked just by doing that.
I think there's another limiting factor in that I just want to address from a sales point of view almost, is that you need to approach this with an abundance mindset. Mm-hmm. You need to approach this with the viewpoint of it's not that was a prospect that I was trying to network with the purpose of achieving X, Y, or Z outcome. It's a process of exploration that I'm doing it because I like to be able to do it. And I believe that somewhere in amongst that activity, we will find the gold, but I have no idea who the gold is, what the gold is, etc. I just have the belief of saying in and amongst this stuff is a load of people that I'm right to work with, a load of people I'm not right to work with, a load of people who are fun to hang out with, a load of people that I don't want to talk to again, but I'm going to do the activity with the abundance to know that good is in there, but I'm not going to go home and beat myself up and say, I failed to convert or create opportunity with that person, or that person has the keys to my kingdom, and what I'm now going to do is harass them into giving me what I want.
The favorite thing that happened to me during the week of launch, and you know how to launch a book. You're sending lots of emails to your list and on social and whatever. And I got this email back from this guy who will remain nameless, but who ironically worked in financial services and sold products, right? And he actually told me, he goes, I'm not interested in your book because I didn't see anything in the preview that tells me how to convert an introduction into a sale. And with online and this and that and whatever, I feel like if you can't do it immediately, if you can't convert a certain percentage immediately, there's no point. And I wrote him back and said, buddy, you missed it. I'll go ahead and take you off the list. Don't even bother to unsubscribe. You missed it. And you're right. This book can't help you. But if you're interested in understanding the network that's around you, which then makes you genuinely interested in every human you meet, because you're just, again, treating everybody like a friend and trying to figure out who's connected to who and how. Then there's that abundance mentality, and a couple people in that group you're going to be able to help, and then you help them and then they're excited. It's a much different mentality than just like the 10-3-2. There's what we're missing there is exponential. What I love about it is that this idea that it's always there and you're always trying to help people. It's that abundance thing versus the sort of funnel. Somewhere in some sales curriculum from the 1960s, we taught people that if you knock on 100 doors, 2 people will say yes. And then it just, yeah, it works, but it's painful. And it's
stupid. I mean, I hate this. Every no is one step closer to a yes, because it's the most nonsensical strategy ever. It's like, go get punched in the face 99 times to get a hug once. Like there's no fun.
I was watching the Conor McGregor-Floyd Mayweather fight, waiting for Conor to finally turn all those jabs to the face into a knockout punch, and it didn't happen. So proof of concept that no, sometimes you're just getting jabbed in the face.
Right. And when we are playing in a world where confidence is key, what we want to have is the ability to have free-flowing, confident conversations without necessarily having a pre-agreed agenda. And that the byproduct of doing good things with good people happens to be good business where and when it makes sense, not with all of the people all the time.
Totally.
Okay. I got 3 more questions for you, my friend.
Okay. Three is a very precise number.
Yeah. That's my polite way of saying that we're going to be finishing soon.
So it's 3 questions and it's a lightning round. Gotcha.
Well, not necessarily lightning round, but the first question is this is Words with Friend. I love words. Everybody in this season 2 gets the same question. And the question is, if a word was used to describe you by others that made you feel happy, content, joyful in some way, what would that word be? Ideal word that you would overhear in conversation of somebody using to describe you?
Probably thinker, believe it or not. I mean, I make money with ideas. That's writing, but that's also speaking. That's doing lots of other stuff. And my goal really is to translate a lot of really good academic, science-based research to something that, we put handles on it, we turn it into a tool and make it usable. And so I think the word that often gets referred to in that is probably something like thinker. So that'd be.
And you like that word? That's the word that you'd be happy to hear.
I mean, I'd prefer to have more words, but if I had to pick one, let's go with that one.
I gave you one. Now, next question in the 3 that I have for you is, if you had a question you wanted to ask me about this subject, something you want to do to reverse the interview around and throw something in my direction, what might that be?
I think to some extent we already kind of got there with this idea of the 10-3-2 and where if we're doing, like I was actually planning on kind of pitching this idea of, well, how do you feel in that whole sort of, what is the law of large numbers or whatever, law of averages, that curriculum? I was ready to sort of throw that on you and go, what do you think, sales guy? And you were ready to just throw it on the ground with me. So we kind of already did it.
I'll add another thing into it that doesn't normally come out into these kind of interviews.
Yeah, I got more. This is perfect.
Is a principle that I have on prospecting, where I talk to audiences about how they can be devilishly productive in their prospecting activity. And it's about identifying their user groups. And I think it can play quite nicely into this, exploring the fringes of your network, etc. Now, the reason I call it devilishly productive is I don't believe anybody can prospect any more than 18 people at one time. I think if you've got 18 people on the spin in some way that you're looking to have meaningful ongoing communication with towards exploring possibilities and outcomes, that's enough. More than that, than what you are as a marketer and you're wishing, hoping and praying, but 18 sets of conversation tracks you can probably explore. So I found that that's kind of been the magic number, but I break 18 into three groups of 6. So that's why I call it devilishly productive, because it's 666.
I like it.
And the model is thus, is that you should always have 6 people that you're looking to work the conversation on that are perhaps your low-hanging fruit. So in a speaking business, that may well be inbound inquiries or people that you've worked with in the past that you have recurring dates on. What you're looking to be able to do is to get the next gig closed, the next gig closed, the next gig closed. So that's your low-hanging fruit, easy, quick transacting business. The second group of 6 that you're looking to be able to work is your core business, i.e. like many people would call it your target market. The group of people that you're looking to explore. So say, for example, I said I wanted to do more with pharmaceutical, like what we talked about in this chat earlier on. Then what I might do is I might have 6 heads of events within the pharmaceutical space, or VPs of sales, or 6 leaders within pharmaceutical space that I'm progressing conversations with about their next set of events or how I might be able to help. And then my top 6 is my dream clients. So this is the, like, if today was my birthday and I landed that gig, that would make all of my dreams come true. And I could probably fly to my next event without the aeroplane, that kind of hallelujah type moment. So by working 6 individual people within each of those categories, what it allows me to do is to explore conversation through to a point of decision. But if I run out of next steps for that person, well, they drop off the list and I bring somebody else into play. And all I'm ever doing is working groups of 6 people through very much this exploration of fringes of networks. So it kind of lays across quite nicely. And it means that I can get exponential reach. I can get huge compounding of big numbers, but only ever working with something that feels tangible and manageable at any one period of time. And it may well be that I've reached out to a few hundred people through the year, but I'm never focused on more than 18.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it goes back to our idea that you don't scale by spamming 100 people all at once with, hi, I haven't talked to you in a while, how you doing? You get it by having authentic conversations and then working the who do you know in blank, and that's how you scale, right? Well,
yeah, and you send that email to like 100 people saying, I haven't seen you in a while, what's up? And you get 100 responses, you're in a mess.
Yeah, totally. I like, because didn't I said like 3 to 5 a day, right? Or 4 to 5 a day. That's pretty close to 18. I like that.
Right. It's a similar kind of thing. And I guess I use it like we both like to use models sometimes just so other people can see it. But if 6 was 7, 6 was 5, 6 was 9, like depends on people's time and availability. But I found 18 works for many, and they can see it and they like it and they like the movement of coming on and off the list.
Yeah, so, I like it.
So final question, I guess, is how can people find out more about you, and what might they find if they come looking?
I mean, probably the single best place would be davidburkus.com. It's BURKUS.com. It's a weird last name, I know. But I mean, really, that's the best place for me. But the absolute best place is to go through my friend Phil, who's, if you're watching this or listening to this, I'm your friend of a friend. Go through him. Go to the show notes for the podcast. Click down in this little description, right? He already knows how to get in touch. So I'm already a friend of a friend to everybody who's listening. So it's pretty easy to do.
There you go. And yeah, be happy to recommend and share some things about what you do. And if people want to get closer to David Burkus in some way, I might happen to have a cell phone number and an email address that could open that door if I think that you might be credible.
See, there you go.
David, thanks for being on the show. Thanks for being a friend. Thanks for taking some time to be able to talk to me and the audience today about the word networking.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.